bemarking en dan verskeie ander goeders. So ek het later by die bestuurskool gaan klas gee en toe in 2019 Pretoria toe gekom. So ek trek al verder weg van die Kaap af. Ek weet nie hoekom nie. En eendag sal ek weer teruggaan. En toe so ek werk tans by Akademia. Ek is 'n dosent daar, meestal in bemarking. So hulle gee vir my 'n paar ander goed ook, maar bemarking is altyd die kerntema eintlik maar van my lewe.
Dus ek wil net seker maak, hoor hulle mooi, moet sy 'n bietjie nader trek. Ek is baie jammer. Sy het gelukkig as hulle met jy het voorberei Engels, so jy kans.
Ek sien kans.
Jy sien kans.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Ek is nie seker. Sien nie. Ja, mense, hulle sê dat hulle kyk hoe bloos ek.
It's humbling experience.
Ek gaan vir jy, dis humbling experience. Okay, ek gaan so tussenin gooi. Hulle sal baie van my vang. Ek het nooit besef dat aan die ander kant Engels nie. Dit is sorry julle. What we're going to do is I'm going to go straight to the question, then I'll brook. But just tell us a little bit about your life. You're married to, you've got children, and you have children and you work. That's not the easiest.
Yeah, so I understand mothers, working moms. So I have 2 children. I'm doing grade 3 and grade 5 at the moment. Learning about different countries, different history, learning to read. And then I'm married to my husband. He has his own business. So I've always been with an entrepreneur. And I think I will get to the humbling story also.
Please.
So a while back, there was a position at a company. So I'm not sure how much I can say. I don't see anyone that knows anyone that works with me. So there was a position, but it was a bit more philosophical position. And I'm in business management, understanding processes, but I could see the whole time how in our company they're trying to teach the students this philosophy, and they're trying to get people to be better in themselves. But as a marketer, I could see what they did wrong. Because marketers, we actually understand people. We understand how people think, and that's our job, is to understand people. So I thought, well, I can give them some advice on understanding how to communicate these things to the students, because it's really difficult concepts. And I thought, well, I can make it simple to them. And during the interview, as I walked in, I realized, oh, they've appointed someone else. My EQ was high enough to know that at that moment. But we went through the interview, and at the end, I didn't know that at that moment. But the director said, why don't we ask her to come for the position of marketing manager, because they're restructuring, they're making a new position for a marketing manager, overseeing a lot of other things because someone else resigned and moved out of the position. So that was in December. So that next year, January, they told me, well, you didn't get the post, but we would really like you to apply for this marketing manager position, which I immediately said no. And that night, as me and my husband go through this whole process of saying, okay, I didn't get the position, it was like, well, you didn't think you will get the position anyway from the start. You said that actually from the start. And I said, well, said now maybe this marketing management position, but I'm not sure. I'm an academic, so I'm not going into the practical side yet. And then I could not fall asleep. He slept very well. At 11, we go to bed at 9.
Yes.
Yes. He loves sport. If anyone knows him, he loves sport, and they go to bed really early. So at 11, I couldn't hold all these ideas in my head anymore. So I got up and I started writing down all these ideas, started files with what will I do here? How will I see this? How do I see the company going forward? How do I see this marketing involved? And I got so excited. Now, in the video, they also spoke about Peter. Now, I'm a bit like Peter. I get really excited about things, and then I want to change everything. But then as time goes on, it wears off a little bit. And this was an extremely long process. The HR manager at that point got sick. So I think the post was only available in March, and then they had interviews only at the end of May or beginning June. I think it was the beginning of June. I remember feeling very cold as I prepared for this interview. So I'm still going on in my normal job and being a mom and a wife and a friend. And then and now thinking about all these strategic ideas, thinking about how I see this whole company.
Dus jy het eintlik in jou kop jou al uit die spasie van jou
I
vorige werk uitgehaal, né?
Yes, I started actually going out of academia. I started also what we do is we moderate, so that's something that we do quite a lot. We do a lot of extra work within the academic environment, and I stopped doing all of that. So I went off committees. I told all the people that I've been moderating for, which is extra income for us, I'm not going to moderate anymore. So I actually exited my own job, being a lecturer. So we went through a process. First interview was very weird because they've known me forever. You know, they have to have a first interview where they say, hi, who are you? Tell us about yourself. I remember there was a humbling moment where the management director asked me, but how can I appoint someone that's on the lowest level now on the highest level? I remember him asking me that question. I can't remember what I answered at that stage. And then I went through the second interview and we were 3 left and I went for the third one. And then after that, they were still not happy with what they've seen. Now, just to give context, I'm also a self-starter. I'm not a manager, but I'm a leader in the workplace. So I have the past 5 years that I've been working for the company, I've identified things that they have to do strategically. And then I started those initiatives. No one asked me to do that. So that's what I do. I see the gaps and I fill them. So I humbly thought that they saw that and they remembered that. And then at the end of this whole process, I think it was by the end of September, they told me, oh, sorry, we're not going to appoint you. You're not right. You're not strategic enough. I was like, wow, didn't they see what I see? Didn't they hear what I had to say? Or am I not that good? And then they did a second round of advertising the post. I didn't apply because the people that was close to top management, they actually said they're really not looking for someone normal. They're looking for like the best of the best, like a very strategic, practical marketing person. So I don't think you should put yourself through this process again. They're not looking for someone like you. And then they appoint someone internally, which is excellent in their job, but I don't think the strategic marketing job. When they told me, I must say that was something very good that the human resource manager did. Well, we didn't appoint you, we appoint the other person. I was like, wow, you weren't looking for me because we totally different. And I don't think the person is that strategic. So the whole list of things that they told me, this is why we're not appointing you. They're appointing someone which I thought is not better than me. Now, I'm not a very competitive person, but when I think I can win, I'm really competitive. Yes. Yeah. So it was extremely difficult. It was already difficult being weighed, but found too light. And then I didn't feel it was fair because this was maybe not. I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
So.
Skryt ons hulle net die storie.
Yes.
Hier is die vraag. Die vraag is, as jy sê dat uit die spasie uitval by die vorige werk, hoe hanteer jy jouself en hoe staan jy weer op? Hoe sal jy as jy nou jouself in so mense skoene sit, hoe engage jy weer? Wat is die raad wat jy sal gee as jy met jouself weer terugkry waar jy kan glo ek is die een wat weer terug kan kom en my spasie inbeweeg. Dis ons gaan julle net los. Ons prakties ook, weet nie altyd of jy of ek kry ons kan 15 minute gee. 15 minutes. En gelukkig kan julle die vrae vra, die res van die ouens, julle kan julle self basies net eenvoudig wat mens dit ek kry nie as Afrikaanse woord nie, net 'n mute. En dan sal ons oor 15 minute half sluit ons weer in by mekaar. Baie dankie. Kyk, spraak is oop. Ons kan sê. Ja.
So then you go through the process of asking, should I have gone through this whole process just to learn that? Easy process. Dalk wou nie lekker hoor nie.
Sometimes your point on the flip side is maybe the Lord is saying to you, don't be that humble anymore. Trust in what you have.
Oh, maybe that's
Ja. Hier is baie raad gegee. I think after this session, I think we can write a book. How to stand up again. But before, we're going to just go around the table and we're going to first go to the Volgehemel group. I'm not sure who's going to get feedback there. And you're also welcome to ask questions if you want to in your feedback.
Let me just get in camera. Sorry. Okay, yeah, so there we go. Can you hear me, Yuan?
Yes.
Okay, so I think the biggest feedback, we had a bunch of different types of feedback that we got here. From the side of, like, we have actually no idea about the context truly of what the situation was like, what the behavior was like in the company, but also to the other side of being able to bounce back from giving up a few things, hoping to fill this position, being able to get into a place of this higher position, and then you're not getting it. How do you bounce back from that? It kind of comes back to the point of asking, am I willing to start over? And that starting over is either going to be in a new position at a new company or starting over in the position that I'm at. It's being humble enough to either quit or start over. And that's kind of the difficult position in this. And that's all I can remember now. So,
Right.
So that was about it.
Thank you. Okay, the Linden group. Or let's say Tactical is just putting on their camera. Will you give us a little bit of feedback? Let's go back to Tactical.
Hi there. So I think first of all, Salamine, this is probably one hell of a humbling experience currently, just sharing that entire experience. So yeah, hats off to you. But I think the discussions were also very similar in terms of, bouncing back from a set of expectations and then resetting. How do you then move forward? Based on various personal experience on similar type of scenarios, lessons learned are just keeping in line or remembering that you're not really in control of every single journey, every single path, and try and learn from every moment. If we also look at the video earlier, the pre-video, also around that, that we need to live in the moment. So in other words, not plan too much, focus on the here and the now, because tomorrow is not guaranteed and the past is past. But it's very difficult because we all are ambitious. We do look forward. We get excited about opportunities and all those things. So it's always trying to keep the balance between all of the various elements, not losing yourself as an ambitious person, but at the same time, keeping track of the now.
Oh, Okay, great for that one. Linden team, what do you want to put on the table? I think, are you not still on mute? Just double check. It's still show mute.
That's not showing you, but I think maybe the speaker's down.
Oh, the speaker is down. Sorry, Linden. I'm not sure what is happening with the sound.
Maybe they can type in the chat.
Yeah. Still nothing. But you can type if you want to just, if somebody want to type something, then while you sort that out, let's go to midstream. Just give us a little bit feedback.
Good evening, everybody. So our group basically started analyzing the situation and really understanding the difficulty of the impression that was created that you sort of have the job and also the timeline. So it made it very difficult. You already bought into it. You adjusted your life accordingly. And then you get to the situation where it makes a 180. Then we talked about the importance of having people around you, a close group of what you can trust to help you to rebuild your life and to just comfort you in that situation. And then it's really then the journey around that to analyze where it's gone wrong. Where you're maybe not too humble in your approach. And then, is this the right door for you? Why the door open? Why the door closed? That journey, and it's uncomfortable. But if you don't put yourself into that position, you're not going to grow. And on the other side, you're not going to be able to get that learning experience. Then we also talked about what was the lessons to be learned from that, and that takes a journey really to figure that out. And then there was a comment about, are we not maybe looking at it in the wrong way? Is the approach or the angle I'm taking on this problem not maybe wrong? And then along that journey is also inside comment here was what was the positives that also came out of it. So if you know a door closes for you, suddenly you start seeing opportunities you might have now that you would not have had if you took that position on. So I think it also gives you a perspective. So, but it is not it's not easy and it takes time to get over it. So I think that was the main discussions we had around the table.
Right. Now the questions is, if you're gonna answer this, and how do you handle it? And I want to put another question with it. If you are where you are now, looking back, do you wish that opportunity did pass, or are you glad it passed and you're positive where you are now? But the floor is open. Give us a little bit of pointers. How did you handle it? And what lessons can we as a group learn from you? Was there any question, Linden? Todd? Okay. Sorry, Linden. We're going to sort that out next time for you. Back to you, Salome.
So if I must be really, really honest, I don't think I look back and I think, oh, I shouldn't have got it. I still wonder. So it's been more than a year and a half. And I still wonder. So I'm really passionate about the company, and that's why I haven't left. And I went back to my old position. I believe what they do, and I still see the potential. If it would have fit with my personality, so there's a lot of reasons I give. I told the group here as well. The whole time I think, well, I wouldn't have been the mom that I am. But this is all things to soften the heartache and the pain. It's ways to make it okay. But one of the questions here was, how did my path look on the spiritual side, which is difficult because you ask a lot of questions, you wonder about your own faith. There was a lot of people praying for me for this position, like a lot. That's their gift is prayer. So they've been praying for me. And now I have to deal with this. But in the background, there's always more than one story. So years before, me and one of my colleagues started to develop a framework, actually for lecturers, to get lecturers to know what is the things that they should know to be the best possible lecturer. So I believe in getting the best out of a company, a person, really getting to your full potential. And we started developing this framework. We call it the STACK framework, and it shows you all the different knowledge that you have to have as a lecturer. During the time of my interviews, the colleague also moved out of the academic space and started doing more coaching and things for businesses. And we started to develop this framework for the workplace. So that was the question, is how do you get someone to get to their full potential? And there's a process, and for me, there's 4 main knowledge fields that you as a person should have. And I sometimes wonder, maybe I wasn't full in all of those knowledge fields, so I'm still working on that. And the first one is self and source. So for the stack. So in terms of self, you have to know yourself. And we do often have that opportunities, especially in businesses, to do personality tests or psychometric tests, but to really go and sit with that, journey with that, to get to know yourself. That was also one of the difficult parts. My psychometric tests were perfect for the job. So it matched the job description perfectly. So also an issue to deal with. And the other part of the S is source. So we work in different spaces. So not everyone believes in God, but for us, it is God. So we will always say to have that knowledge of what is the path that God would like you on. So that's the first. And then the second part is tools and technology. And technology is not about electronics. It's about the technology that you have within you. So all of us getting to know yourself, you will get to know that there's a way that you are wired that no one else is wired. And you have to understand that way of being wired and what is that space that you have to go into with this wiring. And then also for me, as a very practical business person, there's certain tools that we need. As a marketer, I need to understand certain tools. So you have to keep up with those physical tools as well, knowing how to use AI in marketing and all of that now. And the next one is all about learning. So that is to understand how to learn this lesson. Because you've all said that, and I don't think I'm perfect at that. I'm still learning my lesson. But also as a business leader to create spaces for your employees to have a safe space to learn all these things. So earlier, Johan asked, what could the company have done differently? And I think it would have been good for me if they didn't just stop the process there, but also ask me 3 months along the line, are you still okay? I think that would have been good in terms of the relationships that I had. That was something that was also difficult for me. One of my strengths on the Strength Finder is a relator. So relationships is extremely important to me. And with the whole application, I messed up all my relationships because now this thing is between me and top management. Every time we get together, I can feel that it's there. But to learn that, how to handle those spaces. And then the last one is content knowledge. So you have to know your field. So I have to know marketing, you have to know accounting. So whatever that field, you have to keep up with that field. So we are really excited. I'm still on that journey, and I am working on myself every day, trying to apply this framework in my personal life. But everywhere, so what I did the year after was I did nothing for the company. All the things that I've always been doing, all those nice things, I did nothing. And I went out and did it for everyone else. So I said, pro bono, I would come and teach you, and I would come and do. So if anyone said they need someone to come for no pay, I'm like, I will come. I will teach you about marketing, and I will teach you about my framework. It was amazing to see when you stand in front of a room full of business women, and the lady comes to me and she says, oh, this just helped me to understand my teenager. Like, oh, we haven't thought about that. We didn't even think about mums understanding teenagers. So that journey was amazing to see how this framework really works. And how it makes a difference. So that was nice. I've started doing things now for my company again. I'm in the process of giving. I went through the normal stages of being angry and sad and all of that. I forgave them.
They must be happy if it
I think we learn a few lessons. It takes time. It's not to be in a hurry. Give you time to get really your heart in line again. Focus on things that help you to rethink and get energy back, like developing the tools, and get the relationship back, because you can't do this alone. You need people around you. Work on your relationship to get that back. With that pause, I want to get back to we've got a few minutes left. And you talk about the framework, because that was also helping you to see yourself in the mirror. Is there any questions that you have about the framework? And is there any questions that some of you have about marketing? Because we got now academic in marketing at our, but some of those can gesels. Are there any questions that you want to ask about marketing or the framework for Solomon? Okay, groups. Are there some of you that want to come to the space and ask a question? Ek sien iemand praat, maar kan julle gou julle unmute? Ja. Is daar iemand wil gee of kan julle iets kom vra?
Yeah. So we just have a question. The framework that you spoke about, the stack framework, is that something that you implemented? Yes, that you've implemented already. And how did that process work in the implementation of it?
Yeah, so I'm implementing it in my own life. I've gone out and spoke to a few businesses about that, explaining that to them. But my colleague have actually went through processes with companies. So she's a strength finder facilitator. So she goes through that process and then connecting people to the self and to the technology specifically. She's working a lot on that side. So she's doing excellent work. I know she's done work in various spaces, one in for science professors. And I remember Nedbank. She's working with Sorbet, the beauty place now. So there's really a lot of places where she more than me, because I'm still back in my old job. But yeah, so we see the results. And I see it in my personal life. If I have to keep, and you never know everything. You keep on learning more about yourself as well. Literally this week I spoke to her and she was so excited because she was like, oh, I've discovered a new layer of myself. I'm like, wow, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was also something very good to have in my life. So definitely working in the business space.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Questions around this table?
I guess the obvious question from and entrepreneurial, perhaps it would be sitting here and saying to yourself, from a self-conviction point of view, 2 comments. One, you went and applied for a job. They said no. You sit back and thought, well, maybe I'm not good enough. Then they opened it again, and they came to you and said, I don't think you should apply. Why don't you just say, stuff you, I'm applying
Yeah, I
as
think
one, and now you're sitting with perhaps a very good opportunity, which you and partner colleague have developed into something which I guess could be practically used by companies, by various different organizations. The belief of taking that, I guess, is the belief of spending some time and perhaps asking, look, is this maybe the journey I need to go on? And it's a big leap of faith then to take that and say, well, let's take this thing, put a proper frame, go to NQF, get it certified, do something different, and then try and present it to them. Have you thought about, have you asked the question about that for to yourself? I get that, I guess.
yeah,
And say, maybe throw the job. It's
every time.
Ja.
Okay, so to answer the first question, I think I've asked myself many times, why didn't you apply again? Because that's my personality. People very close to me said, I don't think they should ask you, you shouldn't apply again. So I've thought about that many times, going over and over in my head, thinking about how we're competing, everything. I've done that many times. So time for healing is important. And then the second question is, I struggle with that. So my colleague she does nothing but that. And it's amazing. I wish I'm more like her. I can't get it right. And the problem is then when you don't, you have to get out of your job to be able to start a new business. But I also said that I'm married to an entrepreneur, and you know, when there's 2 entrepreneurs in the house, then it's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
So I think it was almost this unwritten rule always in the household of someone must have the job. So the other one, because the business is doing much better than anything that I can bring in with my job, but the stability of my job in the whole setup is always a safe space. And that's the question, is if I resign tomorrow or not.
And maybe one of the other questions which you inadvertently said that you don't want to perhaps answer for yourself, well, maybe that is the right answer, is you know what, I'm spending the right amount of time with my family and my kids. So you mentioned that, and that's why I'm just sitting and trying to analyze them. And that's important. Sometimes us as people don't think that is not valuable. If it wasn't for my wife, who did that for our kids, that we specifically make a decision that we don't have 2 salaries in a house, is because that's an important part to us. And I don't know, that's I'm just, and that really obviously brings also inner peace to you.
Yes.
So that's why I'll just.
I don't know if anyone have primary kids. After they do anything and you are there, they look at you and then they go back and do that and they look at you. My kids have conversations with me from the tennis court. I'm like, you're not supposed to talk to me. You're supposed to just play the game. So yes, being able to do that, I definitely helped. It was a bit of a pat on the back, but does it help me to be creative and to apply my strategic skills now?
Ons waardeer dit is daar wat is the question from
Beckerable.
That's it. You can go.
Okay, I want to ask how during your whole process, how much trust did you put into other people? How much trust did you put into yourself? And how much trust did you put into God when you made your decisions the first time and the second time?
I think I'm going to start with the trust in God. So that was really, I believe that there were so many people praying for this. So even though it was difficult, and sometimes it's still difficult, you can see and hear that. I believe that that was not what should have happened. Trusting people, yes. I trust people, and I've said it to this group also. I've been challenged the past week because you have to prepare coming to speak about this. So you have to go back to that moment and have that feeling of, wasn't I too humble? So I was wondering about that. So didn't I trust myself and my knowledge enough? Was I not? And coming here to speak about humility, but now wasn't I too humble? So I've been questioning myself on that. I don't have a question on that. And yes, I've been wondering a lot, didn't I trust people too much? Should I have listened to the people? The lesson there, I don't know what I've learned yet. So no marketing questions.
Ja.
You also don't try to find out in marketing.
Ek wil sê kan nie glo 'n uur is verby. Dis kan ons 'n 5 minute breek vat en dan Rian, welkom. Jy sê daar agter dan gaan hy in die spasie inkom oor 5 minute en ek gaan hom voorstel vir ons en baie dankie. Ons vat gou 5 minute breek. Dit beteken 2 minute oor 8 is ons terug. Blessings.
Right, everybody. So just to continue the evening with our session on humility. Welcome, Rian. So I'll do a brief introduction because if I have to read Rian's CV, I think it will be for quite a while, but it's really a privilege to have you here. So Rian is up until recently been the COO for Anglo American Platinum, right? That's correct. I've got it. And we look forward to what you have to share with us around the topic of humility. And I think maybe you just want to introduce yourself to the group and just share a little bit about who you are, and then we can pick it up from there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Greg, and thank you for the privilege to be with you tonight and to share a little bit of my story. And like I said, my name is Rian Blichnout, and first and foremost, I'm a husband to Charmaine for 30 years and a father to Sunay. She's 23 years old, and they're the center of my life and also been the center of my career in terms of what I've tried to do in my productive life. So I've been in mining and minerals for 29 years. Say third generation of miners in my family. Both my granddads and my father worked in mining their whole careers. So it's been my life. I'm a mechanical engineer by training. And through my career, I've ended up being in senior management quite early on. So God has really blessed me tremendously throughout my life and in my career as well. And I would like to say it's gone far beyond what my expectation was that I wanted to do when I started out. I remember when I was still at school, from a very young age, I had the realization that I wanted to become an engineer. Don't know why. Maybe it was because I loved drawing cars and thought I would design cars and build airplanes. And then I ended up wearing overalls and doing maintenance in a mine. So, but from a very early age, I had sort of a vision or an idea of where my career would take me. And I just remember at some stage I wrote down this, I want to do all of this, and then I want to become a general manager. So it's funny how you reflect on those things later in your life. So from very early on in my career, I always tried to make decisions. I was taught this way by my parents that, if you want something,
You know, there's a way to get it. You need to work hard, and then you need to ask the Lord to bless you, to show you and what to do. So I remember up until the day I wrote my last exam in my MBA studies that I would pray before I actually wrote the exams. It's just like ingrained into me. So in my career, it was really important to acknowledge that, you know, first and foremost, I'm just a vessel. What I do is just an assignment. I know for some people, their careers and their jobs can become everything. The titles that we get, that the world gives us, makes us feel good, with all the perks, sort of can become an entrapment. So I've always tried to look at my career as a whole set of assignments, and that I'm always on a journey. I'll always be moving from one assignment to the next assignment. And I was always very conscious not to become the title or the job, and fall into a place where I would sit down and say, wow, look what I achieved. It's always very set on being humble. One thing that I can honestly say I cannot live with, whether it's in life or in corporate life, is egos. I don't do well with egos. It's sort of, I'm allergic for it. I wish I could take a pill for it, but it's the way that I've been wired. So I've always, when I do something, I'm always asking myself, you know, if you put yourself in somebody else's shoes, how would you feel? And how would you have liked myself to handle a situation, or to come across, or to manage, or to have empathy? And I want to be clear, it's not about being soft on people. It's putting yourself in their position, understanding where they come from, walk a few miles in their shoes, and then say what I've always been telling everyone is, you know, I'm in service of the team that I've assembled, that I lead, and together we are in service of the business. That's our job. And the higher up you go, the more you need to serve. It's not about giving instructions and issuing memos, and then expecting people to comply. It's about leading people. And from a very early part of my career, I was exposed to magnificent leaders. And there's a few principles that I was taught, luckily, very early on, and that one of them just stuck with me. It's been with me through this 29 years. It's that leaders, we as leaders, that's first principle. We lead by example. And if you look to the systems theory, some of you might have seen the systems theory come across the studies in HRD. It's all about systems theory, talk about leaders, and there are three main things that these things that leaders do and write or whatever else, but then there's things that leaders sort of model. And those three things are systems, symbols, and behaviors. So for me, leading by example means that if I'm expecting anybody to have a certain value in the organization, or to act a certain way, they won't do that just because I've asked them to, or if we've written it down on a piece of paper and signed that's placed it up against the wall. It is, am I leading by example? Am I showing the right systems, or creating the right systems? Is the right system, symbols and behaviors visible in my life and in the way that I lead, that can actually show them this is what we stand for? And in doing that, you need to endeavor to enable people to actually be successful in their work. And then the second thing is, once you've enabled them, and you've given them the trust that's required, or the mandate and the training, you need to support them in being successful. And then only can you really hold people to account. So whenever you're in a situation you feel you have to hold people to account, and you know, in some instances, organizations, and at times in organizations, we go through these phases where you hear a lot of talk about holding people to account. and it's always with a negative connotation. But you can always, as a leader, my philosophy was, have I enabled this person or this team? Am I supporting them in the right way? And only then can I endeavor to hold people to account. So, I was humbled so many times in my career because of what I asked the Lord to do for me. And I just shared him with all that did. If I was a Parabat, I would have been the guy that they had to throw out. And being my size, they would have had 3 extra guys on the plane just to throw me out. So I was always, even now, I'm very conscious not to make a decision because of what I think is a good idea. So I've never kicked down a door in my career. The Lord's been wonderful and just opening up doors for me. Very seldom I had to apply for any work. Got lots of promotions during my career, and there's lots of good stories that I can share about that. And maybe one prominent one was, I remember, you go through these phases, and I would say, like I said, I'm busy with an assignment, and you feel that you're at the end of this assignment, and there's something that's hungry inside of you, and you feel you're ready for more, and you just, you ask the Lord, so please show me, create options for me, Lord. Show me what's the next thing to do. And one of those events in my life that was very humbling was during COVID. The world just was locked down during COVID in March. And in April of that year, I got the biggest promotion that I ever got in my life. I got moved into an executive role, got the biggest pay rise that I've ever had. In a moment in time where people around the world were losing their lives, were losing their livelihoods, were losing their jobs, the Lord blessed me. And just reminded me that, we're not in charge, we're not in control of our lives. If you trust the Lord, He will take care of you. So that was really humbling for me and just reinforced the theory. And with that promotion, I got a lot of extra responsibility around the health and safety of our people in our business, which is a huge task. At any point in time, we would sit with over 40,000 people, own and contracted employees that if you're responsible for their health and safety and the risk that's around that for the business, that's a very sobering thought. And that's something that you don't do behind a PC with many meetings and books. You do it on your knees, that I can tell you. And through that process, I just decided that's what I installed in the philosophy that we rolled out there very strongly. The Lord just gave me a platform to talk about. And I always started, I am in service of you. When we had these big Teams calls, you can remember Teams took off. Nobody knew about Teams until 2020. Unfortunately, Teams was sort of introduced and became on the scene. I hate it till today. It's a terrible thing. But to stand there, knowing that there's hundreds of people on that call, the uncertainty in their own lives and the uncertainty in the business. Are we going to keep our jobs? Are we going to lose it? And I was very fortunate to be in an organization that did not lay off one person for that whole almost 2-year period. We kept them all on, and lots of them were sidelined. And we really took care of our people. But to stand there and say, listen, I'm in service of you, first and foremost. So my job is not to be the executive for this or that. My job is to serve you. And my team's job is to serve you and serve the business so we can have best outcome and everybody can be their best selves. So, lo and behold, not for anything that I've asked for, I ended up getting this dream role about 2 years ago. Asked by the CEO to become Chief Operating Officer, and by the way, she told me she was leaving. And I just sat there and I thought, well, definitely did not sign up for this. There must be a reason that this is coming my way. And from day one, it was an assignment of prayer. I told the Lord, I think the previous time I told the cohort that usually pray, Lord, please help me and lead me. And I would just say, this, Lord, this is your job. You're leading this, and I'm just with you in this. That's how I felt about it. It was like, this thing is too big for me, and I try and get my head around that. And it was one heck of a ride, if I could put it that way. And again, I was given a bigger podium to step onto to share the philosophy that I have around leadership. And it fitted perfectly with the values of the organization. And in many organizations, there's only two things that's really in polarity with each other that we as leaders and managers need to keep an eye on. And it relates to our egos and the level of humility that we have. And then, of course, here's my favorite people, the accountants. Depends on what you've studied. So it's this whole issue around trust and control. And if you're a servant leader, you have to think a lot about trust and control in your life and in your philosophy of management. Because if you serve people, it is a very deep commitment in terms of how I lead and what I do, what I sort of model, what I say, and it comes down to small little things. But it's important that you realize that you'll have to relinquish control to some extent. You have to trust people, and you have to show that. You can always trust, but you always need to verify as well. But there's a balance. And I think for me personally, just always reflecting on, so what is my issues around trust and control in this situation of these people? And I've set the example. Have I given them everything they need? Am I supporting them so that I can trust them and they can take control and be accountable, like we always say we want them to. So that was not the end of the story. Like I said, I'm always very conscious of what you've been given. And there's so many stories in the Bible where, men of God trusted God and He imparted to them lots of responsibility. And then somehow, somewhere in there, there's this human element of ego that steps in and you start thinking, but I'm actually doing this. And it's always led to downfall. And I don't think any one of us are immune or ever immune to that. We have to be on our guard always. So being in this role for 2 years, magnificent, title sounds wow. And I started praying at the beginning of last year. I started praying and I told the Lord, there's certain things in this job that is difficult and that I don't agree with, that I'm struggling with. And I know you can help me to overcome all of this, but if it's your will, and could you give me some optionality in my life? I started praying. Unfortunately, I started praying. And it wasn't long after that, I got a call from some guy in Australia, and they started talking to me. And here I'm thinking, I've got this very nice job. I've got a nice title. And if I really wanted to, and I want to go to the mine, I just need to talk to my PA, and they would arrange a very nice ride for me. We had a helicopter, and I was in charge of this thing, so it was at our call, things like that. And you start thinking, maybe you should start thinking about what you've got and how you're thinking about it, and just reminded myself that this is just an assignment. Don't know how long it's going to be, and maybe the assignment is not to deliver safe, profitable operational production. Maybe it's about impacting lives and changing lives and influencing young people. Just remind yourself about that. So eventually I started talking to this headhunter, and they introduced me to a new company, and I was put to a place in my life where I had to rethink. So do I stay with what I got? Looks really enticing about the short-term future, and some of you that look at what's going on in the media a couple of months now is that the company I work for is busy demerging from the group company, and so it's becoming bigger, and certainly if you've got that role with some real perks that will come with that, and you're in a C-suite, and suddenly you're not just part of a management team reporting to another chief executive, you are running this entity. And just reflecting, saying, I'm 53 years old. This is a very nice rocking chair. I can rock for another 3 years. Maybe I could take an early retirement and build a house that I've always dreamed to build. And I will be taken care of, within the context. I know everything. I'm comfortable where I live. Everything's paid for. Or I can go and experience this. And the question was for myself, will I be willing to make this choice in a year or two's time? Being 53 years old, maybe I'll just not be brave enough, and there's nobody to kick me out to play. So I opted to do this, and I went on a weekend, booked a weekend. Unfortunately, the first weekend that I could book, we had some real issues at the operation, so I missed that, and I booked the second one, and it was a magnificent experience. And I've already then made the decision and informed my boss that I was going, but it's just affirmed the yearning that I had in my heart, and the opportunity that the Lord was presenting me, and where that could lead. And just in a moment, I was presented with something that is so much bigger than what I was looking at and holding in my hands in that moment in time. But it required of me to step out in faith and become uncomfortable in a context where I've not been. At my age, it's quite scary, and I'm going through it right now. So I jumped. And so now I work for the biggest gold mining corporation in the world, in a group role for asset management. I've basically been given it's a new role which they've created, been given a blank canvas to shape it and design it the best way for I think fit. And that's my next assignment, and that's what I've started beginning of February. So as I'm sitting here, I'm slightly still jet lagged. I will be in meetings till 3 o'clock in the morning today still, into tomorrow. But I'm excited. We're on an epic adventure, and I'm taking my family with me. So they are all, like me, still shell-shocked and busy sort of getting their heads and their minds around this big change. It will require me to relocate to the US 12 months. So everything that all the young people do, I'll have to do. And then, as far as I'm looking now, I've got 3 years ahead of me. I've sort of put 3 years ahead of me in terms of getting this assignment done. But then I'm very excited that there could be other opportunities that will present itself. And maybe I will again do what I've done just now, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But one thing is for sure, I met this US team. I was there for 2 weeks in Denver, and I met this team. And my first conversation was around, we lead by example. I've had the opportunity to write the first one-pager that they will ever have, that the chief executive will sign off. I hear he's reluctant to sign things like that, but he will be the fourth or fifth CEO I'll have sign off that commitment. And in there stands, we lead by example. We are in service of the operation. This is how we lead. Very strong on system symbols and behaviors and stuff like that. And it's the small things that matter. You think that, if you want to connect with people, you need to take them out for lunch or spend time with them, do a group. No, it's about connecting with them on the most personal, deep level, showing interest, real interest in who they are, what makes them tick, who's the family, who's the kids, what are the things that make them scared. Just become real human to them. And not be somebody that's sitting in an office in Rosebank. When you get to site, drive there with your car. Good example I shared last year when we had to rebase the cost base for the organization. We had to do a massive amount of work, and it was painful work. But if we ask people to cut a lot, to give up a lot, and we land there with a helicopter, it's the wrong sum. So, and I could actually ground it for a couple of trips. I couldn't override my boss. If he wanted to fly, he could fly. But I made it a point of it to arrive in my car. So they would know that when I ask you something, I'm not asking you to do it on your own. And if it's a small thing that I could show, then that's what we did. Just as a simple example. So let me see what I missed. So I know when we were on that weekend, Rick Moser reminded me of a phrase that I heard and I used quite often before in my life, is this: if servanthood is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. And I see it so often. Human beings can be so easily corrupted by position or power. If you're put in that place, you need to know there's a reason why you've been put there. It's not for you. And you need to have wisdom and ask for wisdom to use that wisely. But if you're not willing to serve, then maybe you shouldn't lead. And I'm humble to say, I've had fantastic success in terms of pulling people together, rallying them around me, whether we started off and everybody believed the words that I was saying and the things that I was talking about. Many of them thought I was like stir crazy, maybe. But in the end of the day, I managed to, in most of the cases, touch the hearts and minds of the people. And you'll be amazed the impact that has on people, and what they give back without you asking. The effort, the productivity that's reciprocated by just you being a human being and not being some executive, or you're just Rio, or you're just Anton, or you're just great. Because that's who we are. We're nothing special. Lord can choose anybody else to go and do that work, but he chose you, so you're available. And what are you going to do with that? So I'm going to keep on doing that. So the Lord decides I should go and sit on the rocking chair and squeak the hell out of some stoop and bore the wife. So yeah, I just, maybe I didn't eat all the notes. But yeah, I think that is the essence of what I can share around my career and my experience being a leader and being in a boardroom and being able to say that and live that. It was a privilege, and it is a privilege. And if the Lord grants me that opportunity again, I will do it again.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I think it's been hugely insightful in terms of what you've been able to share, and we're really privileged to have you come and share with us, and also speaking from the heart. I think in many cases, sometimes we sit as leaders and we've got to put up some facade for people because the world out there expects you to do that. And, it's really humbling and it's so gracious to see that you're able to do that and break down that facade. And I think that's what you were alluding to earlier, is that you need to become human in order to engage with your team. And by doing that, you have to be humble yourself. So thank you very much for that. And I think maybe at this stage, if there's any questions from any of the groups that you want to maybe ask Riaan while he's here, we will try not to keep you till 3 a.m, but you know, I think if there's any group that's got a question or two, I don't know if there are. Takeable. Don't know if you've got anything. Volgeerable, any questions? Anything you want to ask? Anything from a midstream group? Okay, look, I think just from yes, please go.
Hi, Riaan. I think we're in such a big company, there's a lot of time, some people that's not motivated.
Yeah.
What do you do? How do you get them? How do you get them motivated?
Yeah, look, for me, you will always find that small percentage of people that, you know, it doesn't matter how much effort you put in, it's just, there's nothing coming back from the other end. So again, I was taught very early in my career that, you know, if you're in like in a mining company, that's really a high risk environment. And there are people in especially, I'm not talking now maybe the lower level of work people necessarily, but people that are in line or in supervision or in management that's not motivated, you've got a problem. You know? If you need to motivate a person, it's the wrong person. But like I said, put yourself in that person's shoes. It's your responsibility. You've been put in a place to say, okay, I need to engage with you. I'm going to reach out to you. I can be a manager or an executive, and it's just like, I don't have time to wait for somebody that's not motivated. So off you go. I'll help you out the door, because you can do that. I think what I'm saying is you have to put yourself in their shoes, understand their context, and in many cases, you know, what COVID taught us is that extreme human element of, what did they call that, mortality salience or mortality something, where you're confronted with your own and your closest family's mortality daily, yet you have to continue life. You have to go to work. You know, some jobs just say you have to be there. So put on their shoes, understand their context, ask yourself, ask them, how do I enable and support you to be the person that gives these outcomes on a daily basis that's required. And once you've gone through that process, you know, and you've done everything that you could do, and it's still the same, then you can hold them to account. You go through a process, and maybe through that process, a person can realize they have to actually change their ways, or they're at the wrong address. But I don't think you should condone or just accept unmotivated people. I mean, we're all adults. We can make a lot of debt. We can speed on the highway and get caught and go to jail. You know, so at work, you need to act as an adult. But from a servant leadership point of view, just make sure that you've served before you just chop. If that makes sense. I don't know if it answers your question. Maybe I went off on a tangent again. I'm good at doing that.
And Riaan, so just a quick question. You obviously have to build a team around you. You know, how do you change coming into an organization that maybe didn't have a sense of servanthood or servanthood leadership? You know, what would your advice be around coming into a business or creating a business space where that culture maybe didn't have that? And what would your recommendations be? And would you have any insights into that you can share?
Well, it depends. Look, there's always a point of end, and you will always be given certain authority and creativity. And nothing ever stops you from, you're not going to be radical in terms of jumping up and down and going off in a certain direction. It's about understanding the prevailing culture and how people work, and then accepting the responsibility that you've been given. And like I said, that the Lord's given you, put you in that position. And how can you change that? I mean, you can see. I mean, you don't need to be, you can be a blind man with a stick, to be blunt, to pick up some of these things. And then you can make a difference. It's about, do you take up that accountability? Are you willing to be vulnerable enough to step out? Put yourself out there, both for the organization and be vulnerable with people. But it comes back by leading by example. The example that you want set and that you want to be played back, you can mimic that as a leader and as a manager in your organization or as your business. You set the tone, and what's the worst that can happen? Somebody can call you and say, listen, just like, don't do that, or don't have a sermon every day in the lunchtime or whatever else, but you can make a difference. And you'll be surprised how the Lord sort of gives you more if He can trust you with that. If you do nothing with it, expect to just stay where you are, I guess. But you have to make a stand, and you can make a stand. And it starts with the example that you set, the words that you use, the culture that you set. How do we as a team talk to each other? Do you, for instance, as a leader, people around the table are all different, yeah? And that's what I call the diversity, and what I value is to have all types of people and thought processes around the table. And I always encourage people to call me out. If they think I'm smoking the good stuff, call me out. And that's one of the first things I do, is to give people the permission to interrupt me, to question me, and not to feel afraid that, you can't question the boss. You'll hear that a lot. So that's nonsense. So you give them the authority, or you give them permission to have a voice. And if you're sitting around a table, make sure that you give every person a voice. And you'll know some people just don't say much because they either an introvert, or they feel uncomfortable, or they feel they don't really have something to say in this meeting. But you can give them a voice. And those are the small things that you can do to signal to people that we can do it differently, and we can do it the right way. And just be brave. You can influence a lot by doing that. Yes.
You ensure that so I'm going to call it thrust.
Yeah.
I ensure that it went down to the lowest levels as well, because it's easy being a manager of managers. Right?
Yeah.
And because you're dealing with people at a certain level with a certain attitude for doing the right thing. But how do you get it right so that the guy that sticks up in the mind, that's physically doing the work, how do you get them? Well, how do you get that message to them? Because I think the tricky thing with that is it's easy to get your manager, the next manager, all of that is sort of sorted out. They're on your page, they're behind to the strategy, they understand, they need to be accountable. We need to system need to be worrying about how do we get that to that my junior kind of.
Okay, so it's very easy. So how long is your legs? When you sit around a boardroom table, does your legs or your feet touch the ground? What's the excuse? We had and again, COVID helped us a lot with that. We talked about our safety was connecting with people on a daily basis, on the shop floor. I called it physical presence. So, we flew out because you couldn't travel by road, so we flew out with masks, like spaced in this helicopter, and then we landed and we visited all the sites. We put ourselves at risk. We went there, we were physically present at the face where they draw. We were physically present in the operations. We showed up in their morning meetings. Team meeting, just walked in there. No prep, they didn't know we were coming. You sat down and you had a conversation. So you were just human. You're just saying, hi, I'm Rian, and I'm here today to hear how you're doing. That's it. You don't announce yourself. Nobody else announces you. You sit there and you just connect. And nothing stops you from, if you're in an office block, start your day every day. Go to the office block, meet people, the coffee station. Just ask them how they're doing, and listen, because that's where you actually hear everything you need to know. It's not around the boardroom table. It's having a conversation there. So it's physical presence. It's again stepping out, and that's serving. You can be in your office. Nobody's going to hold it against you if you don't go there. It's not the level of work you will sign up for. You get paid for it. But you can decide what you do with your time. And you can do it everywhere. In our business, it's just more difficult. You have to go somewhere. Put on an overall. I'm sure some of you can go to the factory floor every day if you've got a small business. Understand those people. And that's how you build loyalty. That's how you build trust. That's how you get people to do things, extraordinary things for you, without you asking them anything or paying them more, just because you care. But you have to care. Sorry.
Yeah. We got a question. Well, you got a question? No question.
No, sorry, it's not us. We don't have a question.
Okay. All right. I think just from a time perspective, and I know you've got a place to be, we just want to say thank you very much for taking the time out, sharing your insights, your experience with us as a group. And I think just for the groups, you can close off as you need this evening. Remember, the 6th of March is online. Please go and register for that event. It's a global event. Everybody around the world is going to connect. So remember, please sign up for that. Have a good evening, and thank you to everybody. Thank you. Wow. Yeah.